little bit of light onto that. Just talking about the ability of paying the $100 fee for non-resident electors to be added to the voters list. I think that's what this was all about, but I have no problem supporting Hugh's request for additional information. Maybe there was a considerable amount of people that joined that list, but if you look at 46 and 47, there is a little bit of additional information on there, I believe.
Okay. So moved by Hugh, second by Jeremy to have staff do further investigation. Is that, you still wish that? Yep, okay. Anyone else have any questions? All in favor of that? Carried. Okay, we have no delegations. We do have 2 public meetings. Our first public meeting. I declare this virtual public meeting to be open. This virtual public meeting is being held to consider a proposed zoning bylaw amendment affecting property currently owned by Anthony Gordon Holdings Incorporated, care of Tyler Van Dyke, parts of lot 14 and 15, concession 6, Mornington Ward, vacant land, Horizon Trail, Millbank. This virtual meeting is an opportunity for the township to advise the public of the purpose and intent of the amendment and receive their input prior to considering adoption of the implementing bylaw. If a bylaw is adopted to implement the zoning amendment, a notice of passing will be forwarded by prepaid first-class mail to various agencies of interest and others who have requested notice. An appeal to the local planning appeal tribunal objecting to the adoption of the bylaw may be filed with the clerk not later than the date stated on the notice. Any person attending this meeting who wishes to receive written notice of a bylaw passed to implement the amendment is asked to give their name and mailing address to the clerk following this meeting. No written notice except as previously noted will be given unless requested by email following the meeting. Due to COVID-19, public meeting procedures have been adjusted to adhere to provincial guidelines for holding electronic meetings. Any person who wished to be heard regarding this matter was asked to register prior to this meeting by the deadline of Monday, October 19, 2020 at 12 noon with the municipal clerk. I will now call on Township Planner Adam Bettridge to present the planning report and recommendations. Adam?
Thank you, Your Worship. So the subject application has been submitted in order to allow the establishment of a residence on an existing legal lot of record. So the County of Perth official plan establishes that on such parcels that are undersized, that a zoning amendment be considered prior to permitting the establishment of a residence on a vacant, undersized agricultural parcel. And the intent for requiring this is to ensure that the establishment of a dwelling doesn't conflict with any neighboring livestock operations' desires to expand in the future. And notwithstanding that we would, and I touch upon it in my report, we do measure for MDS. We make sure that the dwelling is appropriately situated on a property to minimize the amount of cultivated farmland taken out of production, and where feasible, situated in a location that would allow any neighboring livestock operation to expand even beyond what MDS what might require. So the intent really is just to try to strategize where a house is located on an undersized property to be appropriate for the surrounding agricultural area. In review of this, I won't go through all of the requirements or the criteria of the official plan, but I found that the subject application and the property rather is appropriate for the establishment of a dwelling. So I see no concerns with regards to allowing a residence to be established where it is desired by the applicant here. What council might also be aware of is the fact that there's some lagoons that are on this subject agricultural property. Those lagoons have previously and historically been used in association with the Millbank Cheese Factory, which is situated, the buildings are still situated on Waterloo Street in Millbank. The operation has since scaled down and no longer is pumping its effluents to the lagoons. There is a buried force main subject to an easement that crosses the river and down some streets outside of the Millbank settlement onto this farm where the lagoons are stored. And I've stated in my report that the property owner is working with a consultant and in accordance with MOE requirements to have those lagoons properly decommissioned. And that's not only the lagoons, it's also capping that force main on both ends. So it doesn't pose any conflict. So I've got no concerns with the decommissioning of the lagoons. The MOE was circulated with regards to this public meeting notice. They've provided comments this morning, saying that they've reviewed and they have no concerns with the zoning amendment, but the establishment of a dwelling may need to be subject to additional criteria, MOE criteria. But as we've stated in the Burnside material, that is something that Burnsides is already working through to make sure that the material on site is safe for use, both for agricultural purposes and also in establishing a dwelling. So unless there's any questions from councillors or even those in attendance, there's nothing further to add to my report.
Okay, thanks, Adam. No one registered to make a presentation or speak in opposition of the application. No one registered to make a presentation or speak in support of the application other than the applicant. The applicant or the applicant agent did not register to speak as well. Are there any questions from members of council? Seeing no questions, council will consider a resolution regarding the planning report recommendation following the conclusion of the virtual public meeting. Bylaw number 213/2020 to implement the approval of the zoning application will be considered later within the council agenda. Okay, now we will move to our second public meeting. I declare this public meeting to be open. This virtual public meeting is being held to consider a proposed zoning bylaw amendment affecting property currently owned by 2758 636 Ontario Incorporated, care of Doug Weber, Lot 74, parts of Lot 76, 77, 78, and part Waterloo and John Streets, Plan 260, Mornington Ward, 4082 Waterloo Street, Millbank. I'm going to skip the preamble and we're going to go right to Adam.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this subject site is previously the retail component of what was known, well, is still known locally as Millbank Family Furniture. They've moved their operation, as council is aware, just to the east side of Raymond Street across from Anna Mays and Millbank. So that left a vacant space here, and it's, in my opinion, suitably, it's going to be utilized for an appropriate use, an insulation contractor who has currently been operating out of a detached structure from their dwelling in Emelry. So this is, in my opinion, a suitable location for this operation to establish itself and expand and operate. It does need a site-specific zoning amendment to allow this specific use. What this property has had previously were site-specific uses for the manufacturing and production of furniture. So what we're going to do is add another use for an insulation contractor. What I'm also looking at doing is applying a holding symbol that would allow, instead of, so say in 10, 15, 20 years, someone else comes in there, it's going to be an appropriate use for the surrounding residential area. We do got to keep in mind that there's residences surrounding this site, that whatever uses were to ever be established in the future don't need to go through this similar zoning bylaw amendment, but rather satisfy a future council through site plan control that the use is appropriate, and a site plan agreement could establish any mitigating criteria to make sure that such use is appropriate, and that will be able to be established only through site plan, not having to go through a subsequent zoning bylaw amendment. So unless there's any further questions from council on this, I do think it's an appropriate reuse for the property. It does not need a site plan application because the building is going through some significant alterations and improvements, but the size of the building isn't being expanded or significantly increased. So that doesn't trigger site plan. We are reducing a couple of parking spaces, but given the use is less retail than the prior furniture business, I don't see the loss of a handful of parking spaces as being a concern for this business. And my report does stipulate that The orange barn that currently, the citrus retailer that currently exists is going to remain. And the subject use is also going to establish some space for an additional private contractor. So unless there's any questions, there's nothing further to add to my report.
Okay, thank you, Adam. No one registered to make a presentation or speak in opposition of the application. No one registered to make a presentation or speak in support of the application other than the applicant. The applicant or the agent did not register to speak. Are there any questions from members of council? Andrew?
Yes, I'd just like to know if there's any fire considerations for any chemicals used in this, since it's such a large type of a change. Is that normally looked at or for a zoning bylaw amendment, or is that for the site plan later? I just don't know enough about it, but I know there's definitely a chemical background to this type of business.
So through you, your worship, the building is going through, and I can let John chime in also if he is aware of this site. The applicant is going through some building applications with the building department. So whether it's a change of use or the demolition and a rebuild of the existing structure, that is something that the building department is certainly looking at, but the zoning only looks at the desired use. We do still have a change of use process through our building department. So unless John has anything further to add.
Hey, I'll just chime in a little bit here. So we did meet on site. So they're still determining what direction they want to go, but we did go over the scenarios on what building code implications would happen depending on what direction they go. So once we get some more information, we'll be able to provide a better answer.
Okay, Andrew?
Well, thank you. That's a bit clear. It's more of chemicals that would be stored on site for the product, the spraying, and just due to the proximity to residences, and just want to understand how that's been considered, if it has.
So through you, your worship, I believe a furniture manufacturer with varsols and finishes and paints and other solvents would also be similar chemicals that would have been stored on site for the previous use that would also have the same concern. So the use is going through the building department, and through the review of those building applications, the applicant will be required to make sure that proper fire mitigation is put in place.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else have any questions? Seeing no questions, council will consider a resolution regarding the planning report recommendation following the conclusion of the virtual public meeting. Bylaw number 214/2020 to implement the approval of the zoning application will be considered later within the council agenda. The virtual public meeting is now concluded and will continue with the regular meeting of council. So we'll go back to the zoning bylaw amendment for Anthony Gordon Holdings. We do have a recommendation that the Council of the Township of Perth East receive the report dated October 20th, 2020, prepared by the planner, entitled Zoning Bylaw Amendment number D14Z13 2020 by Anthony Gordon Holdings Inc., care of Tyler Van Dyke, and affecting lands particularly described as Concession 6, part of Lot 14, part of Lot 15, Plan RD 25, Parts 1, 2, and 3, and RP 44R-839, Part 1, Mornington Ward, vacant land, Horizon Trail, and that council approve zoning bylaw amendment number D14Z13 2020. Moved by Jeremy, second by Daryl. Is there any more comments or questions? All in favor? Carried. Okay, and the next one is, bear with me here, is the one for Doug Weaver, that the Council of the Township of Perth East received the report dated October 20, 2020, prepared by the planner, entitled Zoning Bylaw Amendment number D14Z14 2020 by 2758 636 Ontario Inc., care of Doug Weaver, and affecting lands partly described as Part Lot 260, Plan 260, Lot 74, parts of lot 76, 77, 78, and part Waterloo and John Streets, Mornington Ward, 4082 Waterloo Street, Millbank, and that council approve zoning bylaw amendment number D14 Z14 2020. Moved by Andrew, second by Jeremy. Any more comments or questions? All in favor? Carried. Okay, we do have a public hearing as well. Council will now temporarily adjourn to sit as a committee of adjustment pursuant to Section 45 of the Planning Act. I now declare this virtual public meeting open. This virtual public hearing is being held to consider an application affecting property currently owned by Johann Berg and Elizabeth Weave and described as part of Lot 36, Concession 9, and further described as Part 2 of RP 44R 656, Northeast Hope Ward, 4949 Perth Road, 119 Gads Hill. The purpose of this hearing is to give the committee and the public an opportunity to hear all interested persons with respect to the proposed application and receive their input, and for the committee to make a decision on the application. All persons attending this hearing will be given an opportunity to be heard or make a presentation. Committee members may ask questions for the purpose of clarifying the application, but are asked to withhold comments on this application until all present have been given an opportunity to be heard. Due to COVID-19, public hearing procedures have been adjusted to adhere to provincial guidelines for holding electronic meetings. Any person who wished to be heard regarding this matter was asked to register prior to this meeting by the deadline of Monday, October 19, 2020 at 12 noon with the municipal clerk. Any person who wishes to receive written notice of the decision made by the Committee of Adjustment is asked to email their name and mailing address to the Secretary Treasurer following this hearing. An appeal to the local planning appeal tribunal objecting to the decision may be made at this hearing may be filed with the Secretary Treasurer not later than November 9, 2020. No written notice, except as previously noted, will be given unless requested at this time. I will now call on Township Planner Adam Bettridge to present the planning report and recommendations. Adam?
Thank you. So the property owners have applied seeking relief from the zoning bylaw in order to construct a detached accessory structure having a ground floor area of approximately 223 square meters, which converts to 2,400 square feet and having a height of approximately 23 feet. An aerial image of the subject property is found on page 105 of tonight's agenda package, and also sketches of the desired structure are found on pages 110 and 111. While meeting the 5% maximum requirement of the zoning bylaw, the specific relief sought is limited to an accessory structure that exceeds the maximum building height limit of 15 feet for a structure measuring slightly over 19 feet. Earlier this year, the property owners sought relief from the Committee of Adjustment for a larger detached accessory structure to store one commercial vehicle, being a transport truck and trailer operated by one of the property owners, and that building being proposed with a ground floor area of larger than what's being proposed tonight, but approximately 2,560 square feet and having a larger height of approximately 23 feet. That application was denied by the Committee of Adjustment. The property owners have reapplied with a smaller structure, both in gross floor area and building height, not to store a transport truck, but rather to store one camping trailer, seasonal storage for a boat, and a compact tractor or snowblower. In my report, I have noted that the township has previously approved accessory structures to a residence in the HVR zone elsewhere, having the same height relief as is sought after in this application. I am concerned that given the large size of the property, that the 5% provision allows for a rather large accessory structure. However, I do believe that this application can be supported, provided that the township can be assured that this structure indeed be used for non-commercial purposes only. This can be achieved by imposing a condition that will require the property owners to enter into an agreement with the township stipulating that the use of the garage be limited to residential uses only. I do note that the property owner has expressed concerns with me about this condition for an agreement, and I do expect the property owners to request the committee remove that as a condition. My report also recommends that the existing accessory structure that's currently located to the east or behind the existing dwelling be demolished. The applicant is supportive of that requirement or condition rather, but has requested to me that the pad of the structure be allowed to remain so that it can be used for a sport court for basketball or road hockey and a skating rink in the winter for his kids, and I have no concerns with that. I do provide that the structure can remain for storage purposes until the new structure is complete. The township did receive yesterday 2 pieces of correspondence, both in opposition to the application. The first being from the abutting neighbor to the north at 4955 Perth Road 119. That owner, Mr. Dan O'Driscoll, is opposed to the application and has asked that I read his comments to the committee, and I will just pull up his email so that I can read them. Here they are. So he introduces himself and stipulates that he lives just next door. He is writing to the committee to voice his objections to this minor variance. Number 1, he's opposed to size. He says, this building is enormous for a residential lot. It is almost twice the size of the residence footprint and 5 times the size of my adjacent 2-bay shop. It will dwarf everything around it. It will block out the south sky and south breezes. The size will make it look like a barn, not residential. The planner's report says it meets the 5% lot coverage law. So I guess I have no say in the size. Number 2, height. I feel the height should be restricted to the bylaw height of 15 feet for the following reasons. Firstly, if we are fully applying the letter of the law to a quote unquote T to arrive at the huge size of 2,400 square feet that my neighbor desires, then it would make sense to continue in that same vein of thought and fully apply the letter of the law to the T to arrive at the maximum bylaw height of 15 feet that I desire. Secondly, the planning report mentions it is partially screened from the road. However, it is not screened from my rear windows, deck, fire pit, etc. The aerial photos show a line of trees between us, but they have little to no effect due to branches being removed from the ground up to 8 feet. As the proposed building would be approximately 1/3 of the length of the side lot line, I will be looking at it a lot. Thirdly, the 14-foot door is not necessary. The existing compact tractor fits in an 8-foot door. As my neighbor does not own a camping trailer nor a boat, he has an opportunity to plan his purchases to fit in a lower door. I drove around Gads Hill, fourthly, I drove around Gads Hill last night looking at residential properties and noted 14 RVs in outdoor storage, including mine, which has been outside for 11 years with no problems. Fifthly, I also note in my drive that no one had a shop even approaching the size or height of the proposed one, and none had 14-foot doors. My next door neighbor to the north has a shop with a 12-foot door, and his 25-foot travel trailer fits no problem. This further emphasizes that a 14-foot door is not needed. Sorry this is so long. Thank you for listening, and please try to put yourself in my shoes when voting. Please enforce the height bylaw as written. Thank you, Dan and Marge O'Driscoll. The second piece of correspondence that we received is from Don and Mary Kocher of 4957 Perth Road 119, Gads Hill, and they are the neighbors 1 door further to the north of the previous comments, and I can also read their comments. I just have to pull up their email. Here it is here. We would like to comment on the proposal to construct a storage shed at 4949 Perth Road 119, Perth East. In support of our neighbors, Dan and Marjorie O'Driscoll, we too would object to the construction of this proposed building at 4949 Perth Road 119 in Perth East. The proposed location of this structure and the height indicated is too close to the property line of the O'Driscoll property, and therefore would cause them more disruption to their private life. At present, there is already disruption to the O'Driscolls in regards to the neighbor's tractor trailer being parked adjacent to their property. The O'Driscolls hear the motor of the truck running very early in the morning, and also they have to endure the diesel fumes of the truck. Apparently, when the truck is idling, the O'Driscolls' house shakes to some extent. The O'Driscoll family have been very good neighbors to us and respected citizens of Perth East. We do not want this proposal to cause them unnecessary hardship or concern. Sincerely, Don and Mary P. Kocher of 4957 Perth Road 119 in Gads Hill. So both pieces of correspondence provide concern to the application. Mr. O'Driscoll's letter expresses specific concerns with the proposed structure blocking sky and backyard view. And the last piece of correspondence spoke to the close proximity of the building to the lot line. But it should be noted that the required side yard setback in the zoning bylaw for an accessory structure is 4 feet or 2.4 meters. And as shown on the sketch provided with the application, the applicant is situating the structure 20 feet from the lot line. So it's further away than what the minimum required is for an accessory structure. As such, I do not believe that there should be concerns with blocking out the south sky or south breezes. So when reviewing an application for a minor variance, subsection 45 sub 1 of the Planning Act requires that the Committee of Adjustment apply for specific tests. I won't go through each test because I've done so in my report, but I do note that given the 5% requirement is being met and that the height of the structure is being reduced to an appropriate height, my concerns with regards to non-residential use of such structure can be alleviated provided a development agreement is executed. If a development agreement is not imposed by the committee as a condition of approval, then I believe that the structure is simply too large with increased building height for the subject property. I do not believe that the 5% lot coverage requirement was intended for or contemplated residential lots that are this size, but it is the standard of the zoning bylaw that governs accessory structure size. That concludes my review of the application, but can answer any questions of the committee or any of those questions that are on the line.
Okay, thank you, Adam. No one registered to make a presentation or speak in opposition. No one registered to make a presentation or speak in support of the application other than the applicant or the applicant's agent. Does the applicant or the applicant's agent have any comments in respect to the application? We do have John Berg, the applicant, has registered to make a presentation or speak in support of the application D13A12-2020. We have him on a cell phone on my computer. Hopefully you can see him. We've had some technical difficulties for him to get into the meeting. So we're going to turn it over to him, and please indicate to me if you cannot hear what he is saying. Okay, Mr. Berg, it's all yours.
Oh yeah, hope everyone can hear me.
They're nodding their heads, yes.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I'd just like to thank Adam for his support and his help with the project. And yeah, I think you did mention that the second condition that he had was tearing down the existing garage. We had talked. I do plan to tear it down, and I want to keep the concrete pad. But in his report, I think he had the way he had worded it had to be removed in its entirety. So I don't know if that means the concrete pad as well. I'd like to keep that and save that if I could. And I'd also like a little more time to tear it down. I don't know if 6 months would be enough. I don't want to just go there with a dozer and just knock everything over. I'd like to recycle as much of this material as possible. So a bit more time would be nice. And also the money that's going to be held against, I guess, sort of as leverage. I could find a much better use for that money. It's something I volunteered to do to tear down that garage. So I'm hoping that we wouldn't need to set those funds aside for a year and a half while the building gets built, and then after the demolition, I guess we get the money back. I was hoping you could waive that money just because I'm going to need it for other things, but it's definitely my plan to tear it down. Yeah, that was my concern with the second condition. The third one is the development agreement. I guess I hadn't heard about a development agreement until a few days ago. I had never heard of such a thing. I still don't really understand it. I'm not opposed to signing one. I just don't know what it all entails. I'd like to know a little bit more before I just blindly go sign something like that. And I guess I would also like to say that everyone talks of the size being so large. We're only at 5%. Nearly all the municipalities around us allow 10%. So, that'd be twice the size or the same size with half as much land. I don't think it's that excessive. And I'd also like to mention that right now, we're approximately 7% lot coverage with the house and the garage that's there. I think, and Adam can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you're allowed total 35% lot coverage. So even if we kept the garage for a little longer, we'd be at 12% total instead of not anywhere close to the 35%. So yeah, I guess those are my concerns. Yeah, if you guys have any questions, definitely here to answer them. But I think I've been honest with everybody right from the get-go. And yeah, if we could tweak that a bit for the demolition and then the development agreement, not really comfortable signing that until I know a bit more about it. And I guess almost sort of like a contract, you'd have to get a lawyer to look it over. And also, the people that I've talked to, they say that these development agreements are very uncommon. They've never heard of a homeowner going into something like that. That's why I haven't been able to get too much information on it. So, yeah, that's, I guess, all I have. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Berg. Are there any questions from the committee members? Jeremy?
Adam, condition 2 says, I just want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly, that the existing detached structure needs to be removed within 6 months of the actual construction completion of the new outbuilding. So in fact, if he waited and pushed it to the end, he would actually have 18 months to remove that detached private structure, the old one. Is that correct, Adam?
Yes, that's my intention in crafting these conditions were to provide flexibility for the applicant. The development agreement, I will agree with Mr. Berg that generally minor variances don't entail development agreements, but when we're pushing the limits of what's being considered through relief from a zoning bylaw, they can be appropriate in order to kind of meet compromises. But the development agreement executed can cover, so I'm not veering away from your question, Jeremy, but the development agreement can stipulate when the building can be constructed and when occupancy is granted for the building, or when the building department or the chief building official is satisfied with the building that's being desired, then the clock would start on removal of the second detached or the existing structure. So the intent there is flexibility. I mean, allowing a year more time once the building and the roof is enclosed and the structure is for the most part complete to remove something it seems rather excessive. I think 6 months is plenty. But what I spoke to with John on the phone is when if for any unforeseen circumstances he's up against time with regards to can't get a demolition crew or weather hasn't been cooperating, this isn't something we're going to be rigid on and come out there with a hi-ho ourselves and knock it down for him. We can consider flexibility if 6 months isn't working, and whether that needs to come back through the committee of adjustment or can be provided in the development agreement to give a little bit more time. I really don't see a concern.
Okay, Daryl?
Yeah, these development agreements on residential property before, I recall we've used, you have said we gave relief before with RVs and such. Do we enter into these develop agreements? I know you'll hear of development agreements and such when you in industrial parks, buildings. I'm just curious here how common we've done this with residential builds before. Thanks.
Well, so through you, Chair, they're not common. We've done them for MDS, but when we're pushing the boundaries of what's to be considered in a minor variance, like I've expressed concern with how big this structure is and how big this structure is on it. If the lot was suitably zoned to allow non-residential uses, I may not have concerns. So if the site's zoned to allow the parking of a transport truck or a business outside of the home in a building, that's an avenue that's available to the applicant to go through. The building would need to be suitably insulated, maybe better mitigated to neighboring properties, depending on what the use is. The homeowner hasn't stipulated the desired use, but we do know that he desired to park a transport truck on this property. He wants an oversized structure. I can live with the size of this structure if we enter into an agreement stipulating that the uses for this structure are limited to residential type uses. If there's no agreement, I unfortunately firmly of the opinion that this is simply too large for a residential lot. And my concern there is not to try to limit what a homeowner can and can't do on its property, but also my intent is to protect neighbors who have purchased property in this neighborhood to be reasonably satisfied and confident about what can and can't happen on properties next door to them, knowing that it's a residentially zoned property.
Okay, anyone else with questions? No? Okay, so committee will now consider a motion regarding the application. So we do have a motion that the Township of Perth East Committee of Adjustment receive the report dated October 20, 2020, prepared by the planner entitled Minor Variance Application Number D13A12-2020 PE by Johan Berg and Elizabeth Weeb affecting lands described as part of Lot 36, Concession 9, Northeast Hope Ward, 4949 Perth Road 119. And that the Perth East Committee of Adjustment approve minor variance application D13A12-2020 PE to permit a detached accessory structure having a ground floor area of approximately 223 square meters or 2,400 square feet and having a height as defined in the zoning bylaw of approximately 19.09 feet. And that the approval shall be subject to the following conditions. Number one, that the owner applicant complete construction of the proposed structure and obtain occupancy within 1 year from the date of decision to the satisfaction of the chief building official, ensuring that the approved variances applies only to the proposed detached accessory structure and which is to be situated as illustrated with the application. Number two, that the existing detached accessory structure be removed in its entirety within 6 months of condition number one above being satisfied. And number three, that the owner applicant enter into a development agreement with the township to, number one, regulate the use of the proposed detached accessory structure to non-commercial uses only. Number two, secure the requirements of conditions 1 and 2 above, including the provision for a financial security to be held to ensure removal of the existing accessory structure. And number three, to secure any other matter deemed necessary by the township to ensure that the proposed accessory structure remains as appropriate development and use of the subject residential property. Adam, you wish to speak?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. The applicant did express some questions about blindly entering into an agreement. And I do want to assure Mr. Berg that there is no pressure to enter into any agreement blindly. It'll be drafted and prepared in consultation with Mr. Berg, and it'll be considered at a council meeting in the future. So there's no pressure for anyone to sign anything, and there will be an opportunity for council to consider the agreement. And if Mr. Berg has any concerns with that agreement, he can certainly bring those to a future council meeting's attention. He also did speak about the security. I do believe that, so we're not going to be looking for an absurd amount of financial security in order to make sure that the structure be indeed removed, but it is something that's commonly used to make sure that the township does have some leverage in the event that a homeowner does not abide by the terms of the agreement. And we can have some assurance and some leverage in order to make sure that it is indeed removed. So it's not something I expect. I think it might be maybe a couple thousand, maybe $5,000 for the cost of demolition. But the intent there is not to hold it into perpetuity, but it's rather to make sure that it's demolished. And once it is to the satisfaction of the CBO or the township, that those monies, whether it's held in trust or as cash, will be returned as soon as possible. We do that with site plan, and we do that quite commonly. So just wanted to make sure that the applicant was clear on that.
Okay, so Jerry?
Yeah, I'll move that.
Okay, moved by Jerry, second by Amanda. Is there any more questions or comments? Hugh?
On the second point, I believe it is about getting rid of the structure. Is there something there we can put that will allow them to keep the concrete pad? It says that the entire structure and everything is to be gone.
Adam,
You can add into the condition that you can, where it says, sorry, let me go back to the, after the word removed in its entirety, you could put comma, save and accept the existing concrete pad, comma.
does the mover and the seconder wish to add that?
Yes, yes.
So. Okay, Amanda, you had a question?
Just a question in terms of the, like, you said that the council would be receiving a copy of the agreement at a later date. So how come, like, and again, this is just process, I'm just trying to wrap my head around it. Would that not be something that we would consider when we're having this motion, or is that usually something that always comes later?
Through you, Madam Chair. So you guys are sitting as the Committee of Adjustment right now, and you don't have the authority to bind the municipality in an agreement. So that would need to come after the, once you reconvene as council. But also, I don't feel that it's wise to go through expending township resources and putting together an agreement before the Committee of Adjustment has even determined whether or not the development's appropriate. Sometimes it might be, trying to think of some situations where it's, I mean, maybe it's more of a standard, but given that this one was previously applied for earlier this year and was denied by the Committee of Adjustment, I felt it's wise to maybe have, I didn't want to put the cart before the horse and assume that it was going to be approved. So that's why an agreement was not prepared for tonight's meeting.
Okay, Daryl?
We talked about the time, I figured that about 18 months from the time the build is done of the new building, and then it was 6 months after that, right, is the way we're observing that. Yeah. And I know Mr. Berger asked for an extra few months there. I get it. The man's a trucker. He's barely home. I would like to see an extension there, and we work with him. We are holding some of his money anyway. He's going to do it. But I know it's like being on the road and not getting home, and you're existing yourself into your build. I know $5,000 clean up a building when you're exhausting your funds already. I think more than 6 months would be nice. It isn't like the property is cluttered or over the top. He has full intent of taking it down. He simply is asking for time so he can work at it at his pace. This saves his money, recycle. I would like to see an extra 6 months on there. Personally, it's not, I personally believe it's not much to ask for. In the property is so low, and we could sell this property, but build instead of the shop, we put a house in the background.
Okay, Adam?
I was having trouble listening to Daryl's comments there at the end. His audio is cutting out. If the committee wants to add some time frame to that clause, that, I mean, that's at the discretion of the committee, and I see no concerns. It's whatever the committee thinks is appropriate.
Daryl?
Respectfully, I believe we could add another 6 months on there.
Well, that's up to the mover and the seconder, or we need an amendment to the motion to do that. So the mover and the seconder, what do you wish to do? Jerry?
Yeah, I agree. We can tack on 6 more months, make it to a year.
So you want it to be 12 months?
Yes.
Okay. And Amanda, do you agree with that?
I don't. I actually think that the timeline is satisfactory, but certainly I see that Jerry is comfortable with that, and I certainly want to work with applicants, so that would be okay.
So you're okay? If you're not okay, we can have an amendment.
I'm not like I would prefer not adding the additional time because I do think that what has been outlined is satisfactory. I just don't understand the additional time. I would prefer, I guess, if there was an amendment.
Okay, so does anyone want to make an amendment? Carol, you want to make an amendment to say that it is to be 12 months? Is that correct?
12 months after the completion of the new build.
Okay, does anyone want to second that? Hugh? Okay, so first of all, we vote on the amendment and then we vote on the original motion. So the amendment is to that the existing detached accessory structure be removed in its entirety, but save the concrete pad within 12 months of condition number 1 of being satisfied. Okay, so all in favor of doing that? 1, 2, 3, 4, carried. Okay, so then the original motion with that in there. So the original motion is exactly the same and he has 12 months to dismantle that building. Okay, any more questions? All in favor? Carried. Okay, I declare this virtual public hearing closed. Okay, now we'll move on to planning and development, 8.1.1, the City of Stratford proposed zoning bylaw amendment. So Adam?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just pulling up, here we go, my report here. So Township has a policy on how to respond or act on planning notices received from neighboring municipalities. So this is a zoning bylaw amendment that would allow for the establishment of, if council is aware of this section of Stratford, it's on your way out of town on Perth Road 112 towards Harmony. At this intersection there would be, it used to be formerly used as the drive-through, if anyone can remember that. I am dating myself, or so not the drive-through, the drive-in theater. I'm dating myself there, but it's looking to be reused for I've stipulated in my report, a restaurant, a gas bar, neighborhood store with maximum gross floor area of 210 square meters, and a car wash. So I did look at this and how it would have any impact on lands or property owners within Perth East. There is if we're looking at that aerial photo on page 1 of my report, there is the motel there and 1 residential use, but there's some intervening residential uses closer to the site that remain within Stratford. I don't see any concerns from Perth East's perspective, whether it's the corporation or those property owners who lie in Perth East in close proximity. So unless there's any questions from council, there's nothing further to add to my report.
Okay, thanks, Adam. Any questions for Adam? Nope, seeing no questions, that the Council of the Township of Perth East received a report dated October 20, 2020, prepared by the planner entitled City of Stratford Proposed Zoning Bylaw Amendment Number Z04-20, and that council direct the clerk to respond to the City of Stratford notice advising that the Township of Perth East has no concerns with city application number Z04-20. Moved by Hugh, second by Amanda. Any more comments or questions? All in favor? Carried. Okay, anything else, Adam?
No, thanks.
Okay, so we have nothing from Teresa, nothing from Ashley. So we will now move to Rhonda to fees and charges.
Good evening, everybody. My first report is the 2021 fees and charges. And the report outlines the methodology that we use for the annual fees and charges review. And as noted, the water and sewer and building, they'll be reviewed after the first draft operations budgets are done. Normally that's in February, and the schedules attached outline current and proposed fees. Department managers can answer questions on any of the fees that are listed. That's all I have.
Okay, anyone have any questions for Rhonda? No questions. Okay. Pardon?
There is one.
Andrew, sorry. Go ahead, Andrew.
No, just there's been some public, not concern, but just wondering about the dump fees. So I think it's page 132. We're looking at basically scrap metal, everything that's free, quotes now will continue to be free. I'm just wondering what the last column where it says changing to weight-based structure. So is that after a certain amount, or, you know, like if someone were to bring their, you know, their home trailer there with some scrap metal, clean wood, a couple TVs and some tires off rims, it would still be free going forward, is kind of what I'm asking.
That is correct. You would only pay for the stuff that would go directly into the landfill that we don't recycle.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else with questions? Okay, I think I'm good to go this time. So the Council of the Township of Perth East received the report dated October 20, 2020, entitled 2021 Fees and Charges, prepared by the Treasurer for information, and the Council of the Township of Perth East give 3 readings to bylaw 63-2020, being a bylaw to establish and require payment of various fees and charges for services provided by the municipality and to repeal bylaw 71-2019. Moved by Hugh, second by Daryl. Is there any more questions or comments? All in favor? Carried. Okay, then we'll move to the next one, the net metering project. Rhonda?
Okay, this report is presented to council, and it's a follow-up from the Zon Engineering presentation that was given to council back in June. And we wanted the follow-up in order to have council provide direction to staff on the net metering project. We need to know if you want further investigation, and because there's a possibility of a shared meter with the 3 buildings, the library, the fire hall, and the administration building. So as you can see in the report, there is a possibility that this project may be eligible under the ICIP grant, under the enhanced COVID grant criteria. And based on the fact that the province of Saskatchewan has started their program and they had a 3 weeks turnaround to get an application back in, we felt that if council was at all interested, we better maybe move on getting some more information on this project and investigation. Even if council does not want to go with the ICIP grant funding for this project, I mean, it's something else in mind, that's fine. But this project also could be considered as similar to the LED lighting project, whereby the savings for the energy could be used as the payback on the project and as listed on the table within the report from Zon. So basically, we just want direction if council is interested in going forward, or if not, that's fine. We'll know that as well. Unless Teresa has anything to add.
You were adding?
I don't have anything. Sorry, I don't have anything further to add. As Rhonda indicated, if there was some funding available, then it would provide direction for staff.
Okay, any questions from anyone? Jeremy?
Yeah, as far as net metering goes and the description that I'm reading here, it sounds like it's just going to offset the cost of hydro at that particular location. So unless I'm reading this incorrectly, that means that we would spend the equivalent of, at minimum, $265,000 at the PE sewage lagoon in hydro over 13 years. So we're spending at minimum that much over 13 years in hydro. And that just didn't seem to compute, like these numbers when even the $122,000 over 13 years at the admin building seemed to be excessive. It all just seemed to be more than I would have thought we would spend in hydro. So I'm not sure how the net metering program would would take that into consideration. Can you clarify that for me, or maybe my understanding is wrong?
Okay, when Zahn presented the information to council back in June, the 264,600 for the lagoon would have been the capital cost estimate for the actual capital project. And I'm not sure if operations and maintenance were in there as well. So what they're saying is the energy that's going back, that you're saving back into the grid, would be the savings to pay back the capital cost of building that net metering system of 264.6. And they're saying that would take 13 years on the extra energy that you would produce and not need for that building.
Okay.
Right, and that's fine. So that just means that we're spending $20,000 a year on hydro at the lagoon property. Am I understanding that incorrectly? That seems like a lot of money to be spending in hydro at the lagoon property.
I'll ask Wes or Bill to jump in if I'm saying it incorrectly, but the way I look at it is the 264,600 is the capital cost, and they're saying that it's going to take us 13 years, and we're going to produce that extra energy that we don't need to pay back that 264.6. So it's the extra energy that goes into the grid that will be used to pay back. Wes, Bill, or Teresa can add.
Right. I think we're understanding it correctly. I'm just failing to realize the amount of hydro that we'd be spending at that location. That's all.
Okay, Daryl?
No, it's interesting. This has came back up. You'll recall my concerns with how we fasten the rooftops and such, and within, if we need to do on rooftops, we have to take down the systems we install, and within 15 years, what was the life expectancy on these products? It's again, we're speculating on a few things. Consumption of hydros at halls, we don't know what's going to happen here. They look at numbers that were there. They did turn us down on a few of them, for sure, said they felt it wasn't worth our bother. Everyone's our discretion. And it's quite a bit of speculation that I can't support, especially at these times. It's no for me. And I think we could just move on and move our hands from this. This isn't the first time that these programs come forward, and they'll be knocking on the door again, potentially, maybe not. Bruce Nuclear doing their big restart and such here. We don't know what the cost of everything in general are going to be, or what's going to be open, or where we're heading for that matter. So, speculation, and I can't support it. Thank you.
Anyone else? Jeremy?
I think before I'd be prepared to support this, I need clarification on the questions that I have. So essentially what we're saying is, on an average of 15 years, we are spending over $100,000 in hydro at those locations per year, if we average that out. And maybe that's correct. But I think before I would support this, I need to get clarification on that. If I average those numbers out, that's what we're looking at. If it's a net metering project, because net metering, as far as I understand it, just means that it's a negative on our hydro bill, and we aren't paid any revenue. It's just that we aren't charged for our hydro. So to me, the numbers just don't quite add up to me, especially for locations like the lagoon and the wastewater plant. The perk might make sense, but some of them just seem a little bit off to me. So before I would support it, even if there is a grant, I would like to see how those numbers were worked out. And maybe it's in the June report, like you said, Rhonda. Maybe I just need to refer back to that. It just seems a little bit excessive, some of those hydro numbers at those locations.
Okay, Jerry?
Aren't those numbers just the capital, the cost to install those at each of those sites? It has nothing to do with the hydro use. The way I read it, it's the capital costs to install at each of those sites. Well, that's the way I read it, but we could get clarification on that. We have spent a little bit of money on it through Zion. It doesn't hurt to keep going with it to see what could come out of it. I'd be in favor of, keep investigating. I don't think we should completely drop it, but obviously it'll be a council decision. But again, we've spent a little bit. Doesn't hurt to keep it ongoing and then see what grants are out there.
Okay, Andrew?
Hopefully my Zoom doesn't go off again. If it does, Rogers will have to apologize. Anyway, so would the money, if there was no grant, would that just go unfunded, long-term unfunded, Madam Treasurer? Is that how that would work? Or would we use cash to pay it up front?
We would use cash to pay it up front, but it would be backed by your reserves, by our corporate reserves. So we'd have on our balance sheet, we'd have an unfunded number to show that we owe that money back, and that would be in the budget every year with the savings for the energy similar to the LED lighting system that we did.
Okay. Second question, if I may, does programs like this, I know that with the change in provincial government, a lot has changed, especially with green energy. Does this still check any boxes to help us with any grant funding applications in other areas? I don't know. I can recall in the past this was a benefit to have this type of program in place. I may be mistaken, but does this help with having this type of infrastructure in place? Does it help with getting grant applications for other items?
As far as being helpful for other items or applications, I can't really answer that, but I do know that under this program, there is a section on green. But depending on what kind of application you have, if your building is environmentally friendly or green, it may, depending on the criteria and the particular grant, be helpful. That's vague, I know, but.
Thanks. The question was vague too, so I appreciate your answer. Thanks. I'm kind of leery of it's a lot of money, and Councillor Hurlick said that we basically lost a whole season of using hydro in some of these places. So it's well, not using, but fully using it. So the payback would be longer in that case. It's a big question mark. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else with questions? I have one question. If we got a grant, would it fully cover the capital costs? Or it would depend, I guess it depends how much we get. Like some of the it ranges anywhere from 34,000 to 360,000.
Yeah, once we get more details on the grant program, if you look under our year-to-date report, Rhonda, there's more details on the ICIP projects at the end, and I believe it's up to 80%.
80% of what we put in for, correct?
Yeah, 80% for the provinces. The criteria, the total program criteria, I haven't received it yet. Sounds like they're doing it by province. So Saskatchewan's has been announced, and Ontario, you would think, would probably be coming shortly. It'll probably depend on the negotiations between the federal and provincial government, as it's a joint grant program.
Okay, any more questions? Jerry?
No, not a question. Ready to make a motion.
Okay, Jeremy has a question. Let's see what he wants first.
I was just going to make a motion that we continue to investigate the options on the project. I was going to move the recommendation, please.
Okay, well, then we'll let Jeremy move it. And Jerry, do you want to second it?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any more questions or comments? Jerry?
Yeah, like even when it comes back, if we do one, and again, if the admin, fire hall, and the library could be on one meter, perhaps we do all three. We don't have to do any. I think we need to. It would give us one check mark in the green for Perth East. I think it would help. So I'd like to see it proceed a little bit further. Thanks.
Okay, anyone else? Okay. Jeremy?
Yeah, I mean, I have some reservations about the way that it's worded in the background information here, because I don't quite understand the numbers, but I think we do need to continue to investigate it to clear some of that stuff. And if there's a grant available for it and the numbers make sense, we should pursue it. Thanks.
Okay, so the motion is that the Council of Township of Perth East receive the report prepared by the Treasurer and CAO dated October 20th, 2020, entitled Net Metering Project Direction for Information, and that staff be directed to continue investigation and options on the net metering project. So that's moved by Jeremy and second by Jerry. Okay, all in favor? 1, 2, 3, defeated. Okay. Anyone else want to make a motion to that, or we will move on? Andrew?
So we dispose of it or dispense of it or finalize it, I guess we'll just receive for information.
Correct. So we'll receive the report for information. Moved by Andrew, second by Darrell. All in favor? Carried. I'm having trouble seeing the screen tonight. I don't know why. These are smaller or something, or I should have worn my glasses, I guess.
Hugh, does your pen up mean that you voted in favor of? Just curious.
Like that.
You are seeing some delay even in here. It's choppy tonight.
Yeah. Okay, so now we will move to year-to-date budget and COVID-19 financial implication report. Rhonda?
Okay, this is our bi-monthly year-to-date report, and it's effective September 30th. We have the manager notes in there provided where explanations are warranted. And I want to note that the property tax write-offs are over budget by $68,000, and that's pretty much due to changes to the farm class, so that 25%. So the rolls returned it at a different class, and then there's been a request for reconsideration, and it goes back. So just for your information, we do that, but we budget that based on a 3-year average. Those are kind of hard to judge what's going to happen in the year. So just for your information, that one is over. And then the second part of this report, it outlines details on the projected financial impacts on COVID to the year end. If you look at table 3, those are the details of what managers have gone through all of their budgets and projected to year end. And this is what we've come up with numbers on the various categories for projected net COVID financial impacts. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I put them in the categories so that you could see them without giving you every single line that we picked. And there's 150,710 in net costs for 2020, and that's projected. That's not written in stone by any means, but that's our best estimate as of today. Our grant is 256,500, so we can carry forward into 2021, 105,790. So that being said, as far as going for funding request into phase 2, that has been put aside by the province for municipalities that feel that they need extra funding or more funding. And normally that's for municipalities with transit or social services. They have more COVID impacts than we do, would be able to apply for that. Just in a little survey that I did, local areas, none of our local lower tiers are going to be applying for phase 2, and Perth East does not qualify as well for the phase 2 part of that. The third part of the report is the section on the transit safe restart grant that we received, the 21,497. So Perth East will act as the middle person for that grant. I've spoken with representative at Perth East Transportation, and they are going to be tracking their eligible costs. And what they will do is submit them to us, and the council may approve paying from this grant that was received by the township for that purpose up to the 21,497. So that may be over a 2-year period as well. we'll probably do them periodically, maybe even just once a year, just tally them up, and the council can take a look at those for approval. And then the fourth part of my report just outlines the grant information. It talks about the enhanced ICIP that we talked about previously, and the details are pending from the province for that. I think that's pretty much all I have for this report. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Okay, any questions for Rhonda? Andrew? You're muted.
So I got to double click mouse again tonight. Just one thing, and I finally figured it out after 3 terms on council, but for the throngs of ratepayers watching right now, maybe we could, if we could just quickly describe, oh, there's a train, quickly describe the point of time for the water and sewer revenue. It looks out of place. I understand it. I know it's just when we collect the bills, but just so maybe a little bit backstory on that, please, so everybody can understand who's watching.
For sure. I can hear the train. Okay,
It's
so
coming.
the water.
Want to read?
Always right in the middle of the end of the show, usually.
Sorry.
Okay, so as you can see on the report, the water and sewer revenue is at 90.86%. What we have billings posted to date of 83%. So that it looks high. It's interesting. Last year, that at almost about a week's difference, same time we were at 90.26. So we're pretty much on par with last year. But what's included in there is the water usage and also connection fees and as well. So it depends on how many connection fees you have for the year. So that can be volatile. It can go up and down. And then the usage can be based on if you have a dry year and you're using your sprinklers more or whatever. It's just water usage. You may think that there may be increased usage this year as well because of COVID, with more people staying home and using water facilities more. Those are kind of the gray COVID areas because you're not sure if you can attribute the cost or the extra usage to COVID, or do you attribute to something else? So that's just a suggestion. But that's how the water and sewer revenue is collected, and that's where we're at the billings, if that helps you.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, Hugh?
Through the mayor, just 2 questions. How do you do payroll overhead? Like, what all do you figure in for that figure? Sometimes it seems like an awful large number. The second question I had was, we have a police write-off, so I just wondered what we write off for the police. Thank you.
Sure. As far as the payroll overhead, what that is the township share of benefits. That includes your OMERS 50%, your Canada Pension Plan 50%, your EI and your WSIB, your EHT, we could go on and on and on, but those are the main ones. So that's the township share. It may be volatile because some positions, if they're part-time, when I say vol, I don't mean volatile, it may seem uneven. Some are higher than other areas. That's because some line items would have more part-time workers on that line. So their benefits would be lower because they don't qualify, say, for OMERS, for example, or group insurance. So there's different reasons why it's not across the board. The percentage is the same for the benefits. Does that answer your payroll question? You?
Yep.
Okay. So as far as the policing write-off, what that is, the Ontario Provincial Police do the policing for the municipality, and that is included on the tax bills as a special rate area, albeit it is taxed to the entire municipality equally. I believe the reasoning at the time for putting it on as a one-line item on your tax bill was so that the ratepayers could see the cost of the provincial policing. So that being said, when we have write-offs come in for property taxes, a share of that write-off, then the write-off would be because somebody's taken down a building or there's been a fire or whatever, we're returning the money. Part of that may be to the special rate area, which is the policing. So that's why you see that.
Okay. Thank you, Rhonda.
Welcome.
Okay, any other questions? Daryl?
No, thanks, Aaron. It's always nice seeing this. It's a lot to observe in the moment, but yeah, you put some things that are clear. There's a few uncertainties yet. A few things look clear, and yeah, but COVID isn't done. And yeah, where do you point the finger on some of this stuff? But I just want to say thanks. I always enjoy these reports. It helps me just quick in the moment with some fast numbers. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? I have one on page 160, the library. It talks about the year-to-date actual was 1,648. The budget was 662, and it says the library flower bed project. So that extra 1,000 almost, is that all flower beds or is it something else as well?
I'll let Ally address that one.
Yeah, so the flower bed project was over $1,000. So that wasn't originally budget for, but it was approved by the board.
Okay, good. Thank you. Anyone else have questions? No? Okay, we have a motion that the Council of the Township of Perth East receive the report prepared by the treasurer dated September 1, 2020, entitled Year-to-Date Budget Report for Information. Moved by Jerry, second by Jeremy. Any more comments or questions? All in favor? Carried. Okay, anything else, Rhonda?
No, thank you.
No, okay, thanks. We'll move to Wes.
So this report is for information for council, and we are looking for direction.
Okay, questions of the report, Daryl?
Oh, good. Thanks. It's some neat stuff there. It's actually, I was over to the landfill the other day for the first, probably in 2 years. I don't make it over too much. I really don't have that much. Anyways, I pulled up and I have to apologize. I forget the lady's name there in the scale house. Oh,
Heather.
What's that?
Heather.
Heather.
Okay, yes. Anyways, so she goes, Daryl, how are you? In conversation, and she was explaining the new system that's coming in and everything. And I says, yeah, interesting. I said, I'm sure Wes was talking maybe with in regards with a few things. And she goes, yeah, about the cash. And she goes, look, we're having good feedback with the system that we've put in for sure. It was long overdue. She agreed. But she goes, the elderly are the ones. There is a few who go, oh, or the odd farmer cash in the pocket and doesn't have his wallet. I did a little work on this. I'll bring this to the table and to the council. Cash is legal tender for sure. In regards to the health unit, they're leaving it open for us. North Perth is accepting. Salford, they're accepting. There's different ones are. The big thing that you can get into, and there's a few cases now, you can get into a human rights violation, believe it or not, if you don't accept known currency. It is up to you if you don't want to allow somebody to give you cash in your business. You have that right, but be aware you are setting yourself up for a human rights violation. And there is lawyers licking at their lips going to make cases of this. So anyways, I personally have no problem. It is a landfill at the end of the day. I've worked in landfills. I know all the PPE and the WEMAS specifications. There's way bigger concerns at a landfill than a little bit of cash changing hands. I'm expecting it's going to go down dramatically, the cash, but at the end of the day, I don't want to, our elderly, I don't want to have them held. And yeah, I think we should maybe open that back up. And thank you.
Okay, anyone else with questions? Andrew?
So it said, Wes, just to, it said there are little or no concerns from the public. Was there any actual, anybody call you up and say, hey, you should take cash? Sorry, I can't find that right now.
I have not had anybody that called me and said that they can't, why we don't accept cash there.
Okay.
Of course, Hyderabad, people come in and that was the only thing that they had was cash. And we said, well, we can't accept cash, and we worked a billing, or if they had paid debit as well. But in most cases, there hasn't been a lot of people upset about it.
I just have a little bit of background, just if I may. It's probably better after the question, but I never really thought about this until Councillor Hurlick mentioned it. I'd been to the dump, and my debit card was working that day, so I actually got a little time off work, believe it or not, and I was doing my shopping, and just before all the COVID hit, we went and got a bunch of cash out, thinking, oh yeah, we better have some cash on hand in case the bank's closed. But I thought I better get rid of some of this. Obviously, everything's going to be just fine. And so I took a tour around. So I went to various places, and I thought, I'm going to try and get rid of this cash. So I've gone to a hardware store in the northern part, paid cash. I've gone to a restaurant close by to that hardware store, paid cash. I've gone to a food store. It was services the southern end of the township. It's not in our township, paid cash. I've gone to one of the local hardware stores, paid cash. Wish I could read this one. And the final one was we had to mail a package out west. So I went to a postal outlet, again, not in Perth East, but and I asked, I was kind of trepidatious, but I asked, I said, is it okay if I pay cash? And unprompted, like Councillor Hurlick had said, it just kind of dropped in my lap. The comment was, why wouldn't we? It's legal tender. So this is it's about service. And the final thing that came across, it was weird how it all kind of, dropped in my lap when this is ongoing, is that we have an elderly relative, a long-term resident, born and raised in Perth East, who is giving us cash, and then we pay on our debit because they're not comfortable. Well, they don't have a debit, right? So they get us to do their shopping, things like that, because they're uncomfortable. They don't feel comfortable paying cash. So my concern is one for the attendant for sure, 100%. But it's also that we may be turning people away or making people feel uncomfortable. And since this has actually happened to me, I've had an experience with it. I just have to think that we need to consider not promoting cash, but making it available in case someone has only cash or wants to pay for cash, that's available. We don't have to turn them away. So that's just kind of the story, the timely story that came along with my holidays. Thanks.
Okay, anyone else have any questions? Jerry?
No questions. I'd like to move the recommendation that we just leave it as is, receive this for information.
Okay, so Jerry moved. Is there anyone that wants to second it? And the recommendation is that council receive a report entitled Landfill Update Report Cash Payments dated October 2020, prepared by the Manager of Public Works and Parks for information. So moved by Jerry. Do we have a seconder? Jeremy? Any more questions? All in favor? Opposed? Defeated. Okay, so what would you like the motion to say? Carol?
I would like a motion to say that we return to accepting cash, but we would prefer that cash is accepted again.
Okay, I'm having trouble hearing you, Daryl, but I think you said that we will accept cash, but you will still take debit and credit too, right?
Preferred method being.
Preferred method is debit and credit, but we will take cash as well.
Yes.
Okay, moved by Daryl, second. Amanda? Okay, Jeremy?
We take cash at the township office if someone is to come in and pay their taxes.
Yes, we do. Teresa and Ashley are both saying yes.
Yes.
Daryl?
I'm just going to put this out there for example. The whole north end, the Amish community in particular has been coming down towards Tavistock lately, and I've seen them in Tim Hortons. They all pay with cash. a vast majority of those people don't carry plastic. My parents in particular, to this day, still do not have a computer on their property. They simply use with cash. My mom goes to the bank faithfully, and that's how she balances her books. And there's more. So yeah, this is a good move, and thank you.
Okay, any more questions? So we have a motion that the Council Township of Perth East receive the report entitled Landfill Update Report, Cash Payments dated October 20, 2020, prepared by the Manager of Public Works and Parks for information, and that cash be taken at the landfill, but debit and credit is still the preferred payment. Is that good? Okay. Any more questions? All in favor? Carried. Okay. Anything else, Wes?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Then we'll move on to John.
Good evening, everyone. My first report is cloud permit. So essentially, as a building department, we're trying to find ways that we can be more efficient and self-sufficient with who we have on staff. And one of the things we're looking at is cloud permits. So right now, the building department uses MyLisa. So it's a very basic software, essentially for data entry only. So one of the softwares that came out in the last year or two is cloud permits. So currently North Perth is on it, West Perth is on it, I think South Perth is on it. But essentially it's very comparable to the software that the big cities, Kitchener, Waterloo, Guelph use, but at a fraction of the cost. So it allows the citizens to apply online, book inspections online, kind of track their permits online. It saves them coming into the office, and especially in the times we have with COVID and the uncertainty, it helps with that element as well. So currently, it's an annual cost of $19,999, but for this year it is prorated. So I just want you to make sure that that full cost is not for the 2 months that are remaining. And overall, it doesn't increase the building budget. So really, there's no expense to the Perth East Township, and essentially it gives them a better product and a building department that's more efficient for them. So most building departments are pushing for online right now, and this is a great tool to kind of jump on with that. So that's basically it. If anyone has any questions about it, feel free to ask.
Okay, questions, Hugh?
Thanks. Through the mayor, John, any kind of idea how much you had for an average permit? I think it's probably an excellent way to go. Just if you have any idea on cost for the permits.
It would be no extra cost for the permits. We're able to juggle things around within the building budget, so no extra cost. Essentially, builders, owners are getting this for no additional cost. So it's the building department that eats the cost.
Thank you.
Okay. Jeremy? You're muted.
I'll move the recommendation.
Let's have questions first. I think Daryl had a question. Daryl?
Do we recover some of this cost somehow?
John,
Sorry, I didn't quite make out what he said.
he asked if we could recover some of the costs somehow.
So there is no addition. So whatever the overall budget is, the building department, it's not going to increase. So it's shifting the numbers around. So there's not really a recovery needed because we're not increasing the overall budget.
Rhonda?
Don, if you don't mind, may I add to your comment?
No problem.
Just with regards to the funding part of it. So what he's asked for tonight is the 2 months prorated, $3,900, whatever that was for the prorated for tonight. And what we will do is transfer that from the building reserve. And the next year, when John is doing his building budget, he'll be including an expense of $19,999 in his software expense versus the old MyLisa account. So at the end of the day, the building fees are calculated based on the operation budget of the day, if that helps.
Thank you, Rhonda.
So,
Perfect.
we do have a motion that the Council of the Township of Perth East received a report entitled Cloud Permit Software Amendment to the Budget dated October 20th, 2020, prepared by the Chief Building Official for information, and that Council approved the request to amend the building budget to cloud permit software at a cost of $3,334 plus tax to be funded from the building reserve. And Jeremy moved that, correct? And seconder is Andrew. Is there any more questions or comments? All in favor? Carried. Okay, and the next item is the request for dog kennel bylaw. John?
Perfect. So this is me again. So just to recap, we had Mr. Kipfer want us to amend the bylaw. Currently, we are 25 dogs at a cap, and he has requested at least 50. So it's at least double is what he's looking for. So just to give a little bit of a history, Perth East has had issues in the past with kennels, which is well documented. And as a result, the bylaw was changed. So there was a lot of resources and time by Township, and we used a lawyer's firm to implement a new bylaw. And while that was happening, we got feedback from kennels in the township to kind of essentially come with a final product. So where we're at today, a lot of the existing kennels owners have had to invest time and money into following the new bylaw regulations. So for us to change it at this point is not really something that we're recommending. So just to give an idea of what could happen is, so currently we have 12 kennel owners, eight are currently breeding dogs in Perth East. So if we were to double this, currently with the 8 dog kennel owners, Perth East could be producing anywhere from 5,000 to 7,000 puppies annually, and that's based off the 8 kennel owners that we have. So if this bylaw increases, there's real good indication that we could have more dog kennel owners open up in Perth East, which would increase that number dramatically. And currently, the bylaw staff wouldn't be able to maintain that. So we would most likely need to hire someone if our projections ended up happening what we think it will be. So that's all I had. So if anyone had any questions about that.
Okay, questions, Jerry?
Not a question. Thanks, John. Yeah, I recall in 2015 a number of resources to update this bylaw. So I don't like turning businesses away. Unfortunately, we should leave the bylaw as is and continue as is. And again, it's and perhaps maybe he will understand and come to Perth East with the 25 limit that we have. So I think we should just leave the bylaw as is.
Okay, Daryl?
I've got a couple parts here, but the first thing I'm going to talk about is the purebred part. I see we only allow purebred kennels. So I did some homework myself. I looked down into Zora over in some other townships. Now, you don't have to have purebred kennels. It isn't the go to the status quo. I mean, if we were talking about humans, obviously we'd be up for human rights charges. The idea that a crossbred dog is bad is grossly wrong. I myself have never had a purebred dog. And there is non-purebred kennels that do exist, and it does happen. I just want to bring that to the table. I get the numbers thing too. I was just concerned there. And then, of course, the staffing issue. Is there a cost recovery that could be done on that? Like if you open a kennel, like you have to pay for the checkups. I don't know. I'm just curious. Now, back in 2015 there, from what I read in the papers, these weren't kennels. These were puppy kennels, essentially. Am I correct on that? Can somebody chime in there? They were not registered kennels. Am I correct?
Me personally, I'm
They registered kennels, but also there were people that were in contravention of the bylaw. Is where we needed to have it, the bylaw renewed. Not here.
We can hear you, Teresa. It sounds like you're talking to us from a spaceship.
Okay, sorry. All right. Okay.
I will just talk through Ron. Can you hear me? Okay. All right. So back in 2015, we had people in contravention of the bylaw. Thus, there was a lot of research conducted. The new bylaw, there was a lot of money spent, and also the kennel owners were part and parcel of this too. They were all, before the bylaw was implemented, we made sure that we were in communication with them, that they could adhere to the bylaw as well. Because, the kennel owners were all very receptive of this, because there was so much, it was certainly not positive communication in the public as well. And they wanted to ensure that their kennels were built back up in terms of the reputable status.
Okay. Any other questions? Andrew?
So I'm going to jump the queue a bit and actually just make a comment rather than a question, if that's okay. I say I was around for this as some of the other councilors were, and we change this, it's going to consume the rest of this term. So I won't, I personally don't want any changes. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? So we have a motion that the Council of the Township of Perth East receive the response to the request for the amendments to the kennel bylaw report prepared by the Chief Building Official, CBO, dated October 6, 2020. October 20th, 2020 for information. Moved by Andrew, second by Amanda. Any more comments? Daryl?
I'll just leave it here. And I get everybody's stance and I respect it. But as you know, I'm not one for, giving everybody the slack for the recklessness of a few who were not operating under any kennel license. And I will say, not allowing a crossbred kennel, that in itself right there is how you fester illegal activity within crossbred. From a good home, they don't come from a structured kennel. They come from backyard puppy mills, whether it's in Perth East or somewhere else. I know I'm outnumbered here, but the idea that a crossbred kennel is wrong is not true. It's grossly wrong, actually. But we only want purebred, and that's fine. But I know where I stand, but hey, That's where we are. But I will say though, you are festering backyard minimums if you don't allow somebody to be open, honest, and who wants to do it ethically, which is permitted by the province. You can have a crossbred kennel. But anyways, I'll leave it at that, and thank you.
Anyone else have any comments or questions before you vote? All in favor? Carried. Okay, now we'll move on to Becky. Do you have anything? Or are you on my screen? Nope. Okay. Bill? Nope. Okay, we have no correspondence. Committee reports. Do we have any meeting reports? No meeting reports. Okay. Jerry?
Just a quick update for the Perth East Twinning Initiative Group. We had another meeting last night. You know, everything's positive. We're going to approach some of the organizations, the businesses who want to get the word out. We're hoping to put a display in the library. Thanks, Allie. We're looking at, you know, maybe some social media, but that's received quite well. So that's moving forward.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jerry. I guess from County Council, the transportation is having its soft launch and it's going as of November 16th. We have found another bus. So now we are going to have 2 buses that are going to run. I think last month I told you there might only be one bus for 2 routes, but we have 2 buses for 2 routes. So it's there will be a ribbon cutting and a grand opening after a week or 2 after it gets going. So watch the news. There's going to be there'll be advertisements. They're hoping, I think, the radio, TV, and flyers and social media. So, okay, does anyone else have anything to report? If not, we need a motion to receive these verbal reports. Moved by Hugh, second by Amanda. All in favor? Carried. Okay, we have bylaws. We have 4 bylaws. 209-2020, which is concession 13, lot 34, and part of lot 33, Ellis Ward. 213-2020, which was from tonight in Mornington Ward. 214-2020, which was also from tonight in Mornington Ward, and 63-2020 to establish and require payment of various fees and charges. So a motion to accept the bylaws, the first, second, and final, third and final reading. Oh, Adam, sorry, go ahead. Oh, you're muted.
Pesky little button there. I was looking through the agenda and I was looking, so the bylaw that is for, we had a public meeting earlier this year for Nottowary. It's a surplus farmer severance. In the Schedule A, that's on the agreement. That's in the agenda. It's on page 202. The lands say, if you're looking at the map, it says Municipality of North Perth, Logan Ward. North should be Municipality of West Perth. I don't want there to be any confusion or this bylaw to be held up because there's an error on the Schedule A. So maybe that can just be penned in or scratched out and penned in North.
All right, I see it.
West.
Yeah, okay.
That's all.
Okay, thanks, Adam. Okay, a mover for these 4 bylaws. Moved by Hugh, second by Jerry. All in favor? Carried. Okay, we have no closed session. Is there any notice of motions? Any new business? Any announcements? Okay, we need a motion to confirm the confirmatory bylaw. Moved by Hugh, second by Amanda. All in favor? Carried, and we are going to adjourn at 8:47. Moved by Daryl, second by Hugh. All in favor? Carried.